Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we peer into Periscope to give you a glimpse of the popular new social platform and explore the value of live streaming as a marketing tool. Open your ears and prepare your eyes because we're going scoping.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, the official podcast of Monsters Unlimited, a creative agency with a business brain. I'm Shad Conley, Communications Director at Monsters Unlimited, and I'm going to try to pay attention to this podcast, but I'm a little distracted watching millennials hang out on Periscope. Oh, look, they're eating a sandwich.
They like those sandwiches. They're tasty.
Delicious.
And I'm Patrick Jebber, Creative Director at Monsters Unlimited, and you can catch our not-so-live stream of this podcast at Think Monsters.
I can't actually verify that this is being broadcast live on Periscope right now. You can see Patrick's mug right there in the office.
I'm right here.
If this is your first time checking out the podcast, our goal on Speaking Human is to simplify complex marketing topics. We toss aside all the buzzwords and mumbo-jumbo to focus on how marketing can bring brands and people together. On today's episode, we get magically transported into some strange, amazing, and often mystifying other worlds by simply clicking on an app on our smartphone screens. We'll give you the lowdown on Periscope and tell you why and how you might want to start working it into the marketing mix. This podcast could turn into a broadcast and explode into cascading hearts at any minute. Actually, it already has. So let's get into it.
Here's my status update. Live mobile video is red hot. Apple just named Periscope, the live mobile video app, the app of the year, topping Apple's annual rankings of the best in mobile.
It's still a bit of a shock, but I can't tell you how amazing it feels.
This is the Talking Tech Garage. This is where it all happens.
Periscope, which has been downloaded over 10 million times, is simple. You open the app, click broadcast, title your subject, hit record, and now your Twitter followers can tune right into your video feed.
We wanted to build a teleportation device. We wanted you to be able to go see the 7 natural wonders of the world from the comfort of your couch. We like thinking of that whole idea as teleportation because you're stepping into someone's shoes somewhere halfway around the world, and we want you to feel like you're there.
What you just heard was an audio clip from a video by USA Today technology columnist Jefferson Graham reporting on how Periscope was named Apple's App of the Year in its annual year-end rankings. That report provided a brief summary of what Periscope is and does. But for those listeners out there who are only vaguely or not at all familiar with Periscope, Patrick, can you provide a little more background on this much buzzed about social app?
So how can I describe Periscope so that our listeners who have no idea what it is will understand? Okay, I think I have it. Here it goes. It's an app that allows you to share and watch live videos instantly. That's it. That's all there is to it. Kind of. So Periscope launched in March of 2015, but blew up big in 2015 due to the fact that it was purchased by Twitter shortly thereafter for $86 million. Not yen, or Spanish gold coins, or M&Ms. $86 million.
Yeah, a decent chunk of change for a new app.
Yeah, but Periscope grew due to its seamless integration then with Twitter and was downloaded over 10 million times. That's not necessarily the number of users, but you get the idea of how live streaming is catching on. Some might call it a voyeur's dream come true. Plus, as you mentioned earlier, Shad, it gained the prestigious App of the Year from Apple, and Apple gave it a great shout out by saying, "This game changer made sharing and watching live videos an instant obsession." So watch out, Facebook Live video sharing.
That's some good info, and it is. It's pretty simple what it does, but it's a little more complex than that when you're actually using it or trying to think about how to use it as a brand, I guess.
Absolutely.
So let's kick things off. Let's talk a little bit about your initial Periscope experience, like your first time kind of diving into the app. What was that like? Using a social media app or site for the first time or network for the first time, is it kind of an interesting thing because it's like you're dropped in the woods by a helicopter and you just kind of have to figure out where you're going, and that can be either easy or difficult depending on the setup. So what was your experience like with Periscope in that respect, Patrick?
Well, if you have a Twitter account, it uses the same credentials, so signing up in the app was pretty easy. That's where it really excels at being super easy and intuitive, I think. Also, starting a broadcast and exploring the world of Periscope streams is a very easy experience for most users, I would think. Kind of? No? That's not your experience?
Not totally. I thought going into it, it's a little confusing and disorienting as you first get in there to, I guess, discover things you want to watch.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of the part where it's like, where do I start? Where do I look? You have a way of finding, people you're following on Twitter. And you're right. Logging in and set up, that stuff's easy.
Yeah.
But you're just kind of like dropped in there. Then it's like, what do I do now? You can search people or locations, but you can't really search by like topics. So you just end up wandering around a little bit through the Periscope world.
And you said something, and that is it drops you into the app. But I do like the randomness of the app. What I mean by that is that it relies on discovery through random results in that list or searching for broadcasts in specific locations. I do wish there was a way, like you were talking about, to search for streams based on like a keyword.
Yeah, I think that would give it just that little bit more organization. And, maybe that's something they'll eventually add, or maybe not. Then maybe they want that randomness to it. But you're right. It's easy as far as the app design goes and everything. It's just the, I guess, tornado of streams and, content is all over the place. There's church choirs, there's people sitting around in apartments, there's walks on the beach, there's conferences and presentations, and you're just like floating through all this. And it reminded me a lot of the beginning of Twitter and the first time I used Twitter, and you just go in there and you're like, how do I make sense of this for what I'm interested in? You know what I mean? And you kind of have to wander and create that for yourself. So Periscope's the same way.
Yeah, you're like a vagabond. You're a wanderer, a nomad in this world of live streams.
Yeah. And all that being said, those are some small nitpicks, and that was just my experience. But I think I love this app. I really dig it. It's pretty addictive. Once you get in there and just start watching things you're not even interested in, but you can't stop. The word you used that I have underlined 1,000 times in my notes is, voyeuristic. You just get these windows into these people's lives, and it's just so amazing. Their faces are right there. You can look around at the backdrops. I heard the creator or the owner of the app saying how it was like teleportation. And that's kind of what it is. You're just all of a sudden looking into these little windows of the world as they're happening. It's also, and I don't know if you felt this way too, when you first start watching, it almost feels like people are looking back, like people can see you too.
Yeah, when they're looking at the camera and they're talking to it, it's like they're actually seeing you. But that's also, I feel like, the illusion that it creates that people are actually having this conversation with you directly. They're not, but you as the viewer end up feeling like, wow, that person's talking to me right now.
Yeah, or they see your name or your handle pop up whenever you enter. And, sometimes they'll mention or address you directly, and it's like, oh, they're looking at me. They can see me. They can't. It's such a close illusion of being there, I guess, that's part of it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So let's move on a little bit and focus on some of the key assets and benefits and features of Periscope. What do you like about the app? Why do you think it's useful? What are some of your favorite things about it, Patrick?
What I like about Periscope, I mentioned this before, is I like the random discovery of people sharing their live streams. It's both a feature and I feel like a benefit to the app. I know that you can't search for things specifically by topic or whatever, but it does allow people to find and watch people who they probably wouldn't normally watch. Like you said before, it drops you in. You may hop on for 3 seconds, or you might stay on the entire time because for whatever reason it interests you, but you move on to the next thing, And like you were saying, it is addictive because you're getting these little snippets of people's worlds. So I feel like that is an asset and benefit of the app. But also, like I said before, a little bit of the drawback is that you can't specifically search for topics you want to see. But the key asset that it's unbelievably easy to start these live broadcasts, right? You open the app, you click broadcast, title your subject, and start recording. And now all your Twitter followers can tune into your video. So make something that might have been very difficult for people at one time to do super easily now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And the thing I thought is like all great social networks, it answers a question. In this case, that question is, What would you do if you had your own live broadcast network? What would you put on there? You determine the content. It kind of just hands that to you. It's taking a unique place in the social media spectrum. It's doing something different that we didn't have before and giving you that capability. It's live, it's right now, it's instantly transporting people somewhere. It's your own reality show. So it's a perfect addition. It's what was missing at this moment from the social media world.
Yeah, we've got audio, we've got photos, and we've got even, pre-recorded videos, and we've got all these different things, but we didn't have live video that's uncensored, unedited, and now you do. It sort of fits this little new niche of the social world for sure.
Yeah, there's so many social media sites, but most of them are redundant or doing a variation on the same thing. Like Snapchat's a hot social network right now, but take away the fact that things are disposed of quickly. It really doesn't do anything differently than the other social media sites and apps that have already been around. So It's not really adding something, whereas I think Periscope is.
Yeah, and it's a very useful tool.
Yeah, and one last thing, I'll mention real quick is I do like the map feature. I do like that you can find sort of the streams going on by location, especially, you talk about marketing purposes, that location-based marketing is becoming more relevant in the online world. So I think that's a valuable tool. It's interesting to just be able to find things that are going on right around you.
Yeah.
So let's move on into the marketing realm then. Let's talk about, do you see this having potential as a marketing tool? And, how could organizations use it? What are some different ways you could think of?
Periscope does have the potential as a marketing tool. In our initial research, we found a lot of people who are using it to promote themselves or their businesses. For example, foodies, who, if our listeners don't know, are people who like to cook. Like people don't know what foodies are, but that's possible. Foodies were cooking live in their kitchens, talking about the ingredients and things they were using. It was like the Food Network on a very social, very local, very intimate level, Pastors were giving impromptu sermons in their car. We even saw a family who adopted a wild deer and who wrote a book about how it affected their lives and used Periscope to gain some attention via live streams of the deer living in their home because it actually has its own room. Just some super cool potential there. As a marketing tool, it has that instant availability to a wide range of people. And I think it has real potential too, even for larger organizations to use the medium to market themselves. Large corporate events, for example, like a relay fundraiser, where the HR department could use Periscope to broadcast the event and get employees involved and show off the company culture. And it could help the HR department maybe in their recruiting efforts. Of course, there's a lot that would have to happen behind the scenes to make all that work, like all marketing efforts. But it could be a new way to reach people, especially even a younger demographic who are very used to social sharing their lives.
No, absolutely. And the thing, that comes with it, I talked about it, occupies that unique space on the social spectrum. And what that gives you is transparency and authenticity. And those are two things that are pretty valued today when it comes to brands. So it gives you the opportunity to do these unique things, and what can we live broadcast? Product launches, press conferences, events, presentations, behind the scenes access, facility tours, all these different things you can do in a more authentic way than you could just say creating a YouTube video or something like that. It's something more, you are there, I guess. But there's absolutely just a huge spectrum of potential there. It's just figuring out, the way to do it. Maybe for, a lot of brands, that's even creating like a weekly show where you can do interviews or give advice or just have Q&As with people, panels, town halls, all those things. One, it's live video, so it's happening right now. And then two, it's interactive. So people can get involved. They can ask you questions. You can directly speak with them live as it's happening. A lot of value there for brands. And it's something different on the social spectrum you can use.
I think of all those that you mentioned even as event-oriented broadcasts, the interviews, town halls, those kinds of things, because they're exciting. There's a lot going on. So people who tune in to the stream get some entertainment value out of it, which ultimately helps build that viewer base that you want as a Periscoper, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of it's like YouTube without a net. It's like, or you're watching a press conference on TV and you get this kind of head-on different angle, like you're standing there type angle.
I do like that from that angle.
Yeah, a lot of potential there. And I'll throw out a few quick brand examples before we move on. Spotify, the streaming music service, they've done on Periscope broadcasts of in-studio performances with music artists. Red Bull, who's all over progressive social media. They put on events around the world all the time. And GE, General Electric, has done interviews with scientists and different technology they're creating. So those are just a few examples just to give you some ideas of what some brands have already done.
Those are all really cool ways. And some of those brands, this medium lends itself to them, like Red Bull, guys skydiving and it's like
extreme things.
Yeah, things that people are interested, that maybe an average person wouldn't be doing on their own. So when you jump into that world, it's like, wow, again, that brand gets some value out of it.
And, we talked about a lot of, those are a lot of like structured and kind of bigger event-based ideas, as you said. It doesn't have to be like that. As you said, we're broadcasting on Periscope right now. It's you doing this podcast, it's like, and you'll find a lot of talking head people broadcasting on Periscope, and it can be that, sometimes it's just hearing what a person has to say can be compelling.
Yeah.
So wrapping things up here today, what's your top takeaway on Periscope for companies, who are thinking of taking a look at this? What should they know? How can they use it in their marketing? What are your thoughts?
Like I mentioned before, all things marketing require effort, and that probably goes without saying, but Periscope would take some effort to use in a company setting, I think. Should companies use Periscope? I'd say yes, but realize that you should think through some of the logistics of how you'll use it. From a company perspective, you got to look at a lot of things like how could this negatively impact what we're trying to do? But most importantly, the thing that you should be looking at is, does it get you closer to your goal, whatever that marketing goal may be? And it may or it may not, but I think it has a lot of potential, and I think companies can use it and actually get value out of it for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned a good thing I hadn't thought about, negative implications of it. But if you're doing something shady or shisty, you probably don't want to live broadcast that.
No, you don't want to live broadcast something shady for sure. I have seen my fair share of shady Periscope streams, so I know it happens. But
they exist.
They certainly exist, yeah.
But you don't want press conferences going on in the background and you're like behind the curtain getting rid of a dead body. That's something you wouldn't want to broadcast.
You immediately go to hiding a dead body? Like that's the shady thing that your mind would...
A lot of brands are doing that. A lot of
big company brands they're trying to definitely bury some bodies. Yeah, no, I mean, it can happen. Well, on a very small scale, you don't want employees killing your brand either, So if your brand is supporting it, you want it to be something that lives up to your brand vision and your brand mission, so...
my takeaway kind of goes right along with yours in that if I was summing it up in a sentence, I'd say Periscope is definitely worth exploring.
It is.
Test it out and see if it has any value, if you can use it to connect to your specific audience. If it gives you a window to that audience you're trying to reach, or it can inspire you to do something creative, or seems like a good way to amplify your message to that audience. Two key questions to ask yourself are, what are we doing that's broadcast worthy? Or what can we do that's broadcast worthy? And then the other one would be, how can we make it interactive? How can we get people involved? Because obviously hearts and comments, are a big part of Periscope. That's what you're doing it for. Like all social media, it's about engaging with people and having that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, you always want to engage people in conversation and listen. So, Periscope is great. People are right now talking to me on Periscope. I don't speak spine. That's a question I just got. I don't even know.
Pretty cool, though. You've got people popping up who are from France and from Italy. So one of the you just get a window to somebody across the world is kind of what is amazing and exciting about this app.
I think this has been a good conversation on Periscope and how, companies can use it to do some fun things with their marketing. Is there anything else you wanted to cover, Shad?
This is such a new network within the past year. We might have to do some follow-up, and we may have some of that coming up soon.
Yeah, so that's it for today's episode. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast at speakinghuman.com. You can also subscribe, rate, and review the Speaking Human podcast in the iTunes store.
Email us with your thoughts on Periscope and tell us how you're using it as a marketing tool. Or just send along any questions or comments. Feedback@thinkmonsters.com. That's feedback@thinkmonsters.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Speaking Human. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking human.